Hello and welcome to a New Pace podcast. My name's Leslie and I'm your podcast host, and today's episode number 14 is called Act Like an Artist. So this is all about identity and builds a little bit on the last episode, where I talk about the differences between my role and jobs as an art teacher and an art therapist. And the reason why I wanted to talk about artist and being able to act like an artist is that I speak to people and hear loads and loads of things around the world, everywhere, online and things, about how whether somebody's an artist or not, and how people feel about not being an artist or being an artist, and whether that feels aligned with them or not. And sometimes people would say things like, well, I'm just not very creative, or I'm not an artist, I can't do that. And I hear that a lot. I hear that from people at work. I hear that from people at home. I'm not an artist, I can't do that. I have no idea about those colours. And then I look at them and I comment about maybe some of the clothes that they're wearing being colour coordinated. They might have chosen a cardigan that matches like a tinge of green on their top, and then it fits in with that. So they have an eye for certain things, but they might not feel that they're an artist. And I wanted to kind of frame this a little bit differently, that actually, if we are considering ourselves, what would an artist be? What is an artist? And if you were to think about like an artist as a role or an artist as a job, then you might be thinking, well, to be an artist, do you have to be earning money as an artist? Do you have to be making art every day? Do you have to be making art that is really famous, that people know who you are, like, in the public eye? Or do you need to simply be making some art in some ways? And that we've got that question of what is art as well. It's like, what even is art? How do you define art? And in sort of like in some sense, grabbing some art materials, pens and paints and things like that, and creating in that way can be what a lot of people consider to be art. But then in other ways, it's maybe much more about ideas and much more like conceptual. So I wanted to think about how you can act like an artist. So in a lot of things about manifestation and about mindset, we think maybe about visualization and visualizing yourself creating something and visualizing the end result and being able to maybe take aligned action towards those things. So doing things when you're feeling aligned compared to maybe doing things when you're feeling that you should be doing it, when it doesn't really align with you. And fear can often blur those boundaries where we think, maybe I shouldn't be doing that because maybe I'm not a proper artist. Maybe I shouldn't be getting a big canvas and painting and spending like my evenings painting because I'm not really an artist. But actually, if you desire to do that, and if you are desiring to create, then absolutely create. So the idea of acting like an artist, I was thinking about my experience as a brownie. And in brownies, they have a story. There's lots of things about brownies that's really, really good. There's lots of things about brownies that has maybe conditioned me in a way that's maybe not been so helpful. But this story feels really relevant right now. So there's the brownie story where they were talking, there's the children, and they talk about helping out at home and how you can do jobs. And what they were saying is that the jobs get done magically by a brownie, like a bit like a magic thing, a bit like probably a parent doing the tidying up while the children are asleep. And then the children wake up and magically the house is tidy. If you're a parent, you probably know this, and you probably like maybe have lots of people that think it happens magically, but it doesn't. So in the story, they talk about, well, I'm not a brownie. So they consider themselves, the brownie, being like an elf. And they would say, okay, so twist me and turn me and show me the elf. I looked in the water and there saw myself. And the idea of that is that they went to the wise owl to find out how to find a brownie. And the wise owl told them essentially to be that person, and to allow themselves to take that action. So they did the twist and the turn, and they looked in the water, and they were expecting to see a brownie, a little elf, a little pixie that was going to go around and tidy up for them. But instead they saw their own reflection. And so then that was a realization for them that they could do that job. They could do that tidying up. And there's lots of things about the role of women in a household that fits in with this, which this is part of what I'm not so keen on with brownies, that there's a big difference between brownies and scouts and all that, but I'm not going to go into that now. But then imagine if you were to do that as an artist. Right, well, I'm not an artist, but what would it be like if you looked in a pond and you saw your reflection, and your reflection back to you was you as your artist self? So imagine if you were to stand up and spin around 5 times, twist me and turn me and show me the artist. I looked in the mirror and saw myself, because I am an artist, and you too can do that. So if you were then allowing yourself to be an artist, how would you act? What would you be doing? Would you be making things that aligned more with you? Or would you be making things that you thought you should be doing? Would you choose colours that you care about, or materials that you enjoy using? Or would you be holding back? How would you be walking down the street? Would you be walking with confidence and curiosity? Would you be looking at things in a way that is really tuned to your eye, or that your senses are heightened? You might hear sounds louder. You might hear like the birds louder or more beautifully. Something that might have sounded distracting, you might view that in a more beautiful way. And when you're seeing the leaves on the trees and things like that, you might be thinking, well, actually, that gives me an idea about my art. And actually, I really love how that works. Or, I'm intentionally putting on this cardigan that matches with the color of my blouse, intentionally doing that. And I can allow myself to act like an artist and make those choices in life as an artist, because we need that. It's so important. We need that, and art and creative people is what's built the world. Like, imagine if you didn't have art, if you didn't have creativity. I recall that there was a Doctor Who program that talked about going back and in time and what the world would be like if music didn't exist. And it was just really, really bleak. And I just imagine the same thing about if art didn't exist. And rather than kind of seeing something being, you're either an artist or you're not an artist, let's bring this all together, integrate this. There's parts of you that absolutely can act like an artist. So thanks for listening to my waffle. I hope you have a lovely day. Thanks. Bye-bye.